Hey, what's up everyone? I'm Chris. In today's video, I will be reviewing my Nordica Unleashed 98. I've been using them this entire past ski season and they've been great. I have a lot to say about them. But first, if you're new to the channel, I post mountain bike and ski related content, including product reviews. I'm a product development engineer by trade. Part of my real job is actually benchmarking competitive products. So I think I'm able to provide a unique perspective when it comes to gear reviews. So if you're into that sort of thing or just want to see mountain bike and ski related content, be sure to hit subscribe so you can see some future videos, like the next video where I'll be reviewing my Salomon QST100s. But without further ado, let's dive into it and talk about the Nordica Unleashed 98. First, I want to talk about sizing, construction, and shaping of the skis because I think it will help better explain some of the on-snow performance characteristics that I'll explain later on. I'm 5'8", 180 pounds, geared up, ready to ski. I consider myself to be an expert skier and I'm pretty aggressive, so I chose the 180 centimeter length. For all of my Euro friends, that means I'm roughly 173 or so centimeters tall. I'm not sure what that works out to be in kilograms, but I'll put that on the screen. I think it's like 80 maybe. So for me, they're just slightly overhead. And I think this is the perfect length for someone my size who's an expert skier. They have a little bit more of a centered mount point compared to a traditional ski. They're mounted a little bit further forward. These are mounted right at the recommended line, which I believe is -7 from true center. All right, next let's talk about the construction of the ski, which is very important for how it performs on the snow. Nordica calls this their light performance wood core, which is the mix of poplar and beech. It also includes carbon and fiberglass laminates, and it has one layer of Titanol, which they call their terrain specific metal, which gives it a little bit more of a stiffer and damped feel compared to other skis in this category, which don't have metal. And they weigh about just under 1,900 grams on my scale. The CA version, according to Nordica's website, is actually a little bit heavier, but it doesn't include carbon or it doesn't include the Titanol metal laminate, so it's a little bit more softer, forgiving, flexing ski. But this review is about the Unleashed 98 TI version. I would consider them to be pretty moderate to maybe a little bit stiff of a flex ski. If you're comparing it to a park ski, it's probably pretty stiff. If you're comparing it to more of a Freeride all mountain ski, it's going to be in line with a lot of those skis in terms of stiffness. It does have a good bit of energy in return, which makes these skis pretty fun out on the trail. So next, let's talk about the side cut. I think this is a really interesting side cut profile for a ski in this category, and is ultimately why I chose it to be my firm snow ski. It has basically no early taper in the ski, so the widest part of the ski is basically all the way up here where the rocker profile begins to start. They're 98 underfoot, of course, and then in the tail, same thing holds true. There's really no sort of taper in the tail. The widest point is basically where the ski loses contact with the snow. So this gives you a ton of effective edge when you're out on the trail and leg them over. You basically get all of this length of effective edge out on the snow, which makes them very grippy. So as you can see here, the skis, let me get a little closer. The skis do not have a ton of rocker in the tip. They do have some, just to kind of make them a little bit more maneuverable and easygoing, but I would not say that they have a ton of rocker. And for the tails, very little rocker. Basically what you're getting for rocker is the splay of the twin tip. And as far as camber underfoot, there's maybe 3-4 millimeters of camber. So it doesn't have a ton of camber underfoot. All right, now on to the on-snow performance. And first thing I'll talk about is where the ski truly shines, and that is on-trail carving. Not what you would expect from a twin tip Freeride oriented ski, but because of the shaping and things that I had mentioned earlier with the long effective edge and the minimal taper in the side cut, when you lean the ski over, it initiates a turn and it pulls you into it and it just absolutely trenches turns. It's a very different experience than I've had on other skis in the past, and it's really encouraged me just to continue carving and learning how to become a better carver. It's extremely rewarding just to lay the ski over and see how high of an edge angle you can actually get. And I haven't found the limit yet. I've been actually experimenting with this on like the early mornings and just trying to lay over carves to the point where I'm dragging my hip. And there occasionally are times where I'm dragging my hip if the snow is good enough that I can actually get enough grip to do that. And my technique's on par. On trail carving performance, true standout for this ski. Now, when it comes to carving, I believe that the ski performs best in a little bit more of a centered stance because it is mounted a little bit more centered. So if you're someone who really likes to drive the tips of the skis to initiate a turn, this ski doesn't particularly like that. It wants you to kind of stand neutrally and extend your legs out, and it kind of does the work for you. It pulls you into a nice arc. You don't necessarily need to drive the tips to initiate it. It does a really good job of that on its own. It has an 18-meter turn radius, so it prefers medium, the longish arcing turns. But if you're in a steeper slope or the snow is really good, you can definitely load and bend the ski to make that turn shape a lot smaller, and you can rip back and forth, almost like a slalom ski if the snow conditions permit it. The only downside that I found to the ski when in a carving situation is when conditions get a little bit more chopped up, say like there's some, piles of snow that have been kind of pushed around. The twin tip, I don't think cuts through those piles of snow quite as well as a flat-tailed ski. So they can get kind of deflected in some of those instances, more so than a flat-tailed ski. But that's kind of splitting hairs with the ski. I don't think that's a reason not to get it. I think its on-trail performance is truly special. However, as the day goes on and things do get a little bit choppier, think kind of like mini moguls and ice patches in between, and then like some good snow kind of spread throughout. The ski still does encourage you to carve and lay over some, pretty aggressive turns in that situation. But 95% of the time, it's going to give you the correct edge grip that you need. There's that 5% where you hit like a icy patch, or you kind of get this, softer patch of snow where the ski can kind of get a little bit unsettled. And I think you're asking a lot for this ski with just one sheet of metal to, remain in a carve and just trench through that sort of terrain. One thing that I noticed between the two skis that I own, the more center-mounted Unleashed 98 does seem to have a little bit more of a speed limit cap than the QST106s, just because there's not quite as much ski in front of me. I feel like they have a little bit lower of a speed ceiling. Now, the speed ceiling on this ski is still extremely high, but it's not like an Enforcer where you're just gonna be able to go Mach million and lay carves and trenches through whatever snow is in front of you. So if you are a true speed demon, maybe keep that in mind, where you do want a more directional ski with more tip in front of you, and maybe even a little bit burlier build like the Enforcer. All right, now let's say it's a little bit later in the morning, you've skied out the groomers, you've laid your trenching carves, the snow's kind of a little bit softer now, you can't quite lay those trenches like you did before. In that situation, the skis are happy to make these long sort of slarving, like skidded turns, but they're pretty energetic. The ski does feel really grippy and precise. It doesn't just kind of feel like a surfy ski in those situations. You can release the tails by kind of like unweighting, and just when you want to get the ski to grip and kind of rip you into the next turn, you can kind of just lean the ski a little bit and apply some edge pressure, and it absolutely just cuts you back across the side of the hill into the next turn, like with ton of energy. That's probably the most fun way to ski these, besides trenching carves, is just, laying some like sliding turns and then just engaging the edges and just letting them rip you back to the next turn, so you can kind of mix up your turn shapes on the sides of the trail where there's, a little bit less ice and a little bit better snow. So in that situation, on trail, these skis are also great, but just know that they don't feel like a surfy ski. They are precise, and they like to grip, and they like to rip. All right, now let's talk about the skis' off-trail performance. I've taken these skis down some of the more challenging runs in the Northeast at Stowe, skied the front four with them. I love skiing off-trail. If I never had to touch a groomer, I'd be a-okay with that. That is my favorite way to ski. So for me, a ski that I own needs to perform well off-trail. The Unleashed 98 performs great off-trail, but it demands your A game. It is a very precise and high-performance gripping, ripping ski that does not like to be kind of surfed and slarved around, particularly in off-piste terrain. If you get in the back seat, the tails will hook up. They'll send you into the next turn. So you really need to be on your A game. It's a ski that demands your best. And I feel like it's made me a little bit better skier because I notice my mistakes more. It's not quite as forgiving as a ski like the QST. But in those off-trail situations where you have patches of ice, it's just a firmer day, I would much rather be on the Unleashed 98 than a ski like the QST because it has so much more edge grip. Now, what I found when skiing off trail, the skis absolutely like to engage a turn, but you can kind of get around this if you need them to slarb in between some sort of technical feature. You need to make the skis slide. Weight the front of the skis, which kind of engages the tips where it has a little bit more rocker, which releases the tails slightly, allows you to kind of make a slarving turn. As long as you don't get to an extreme edge angle, the ski is not going to try to grab and bite you into that next turn. And just keep your weight transfer nice and smooth. And you can slide and slarve when skiing off trail. So like say you're between big moguls, you can, kind of make that nice even weight transfer. But then what's great about this ski is that even when the snow is firm, when you do kind of give it the edge angle and pressure that you need to engage a turn, it absolutely just grips and wants to send you into that next turn with authority. So be ready for it. And once you kind of figure those two ways of skiing out, the ski is incredibly capable off trail. It just demands your A game. So bring it and the ski will reward you for it. Now, when things get a little bit more variable off trail, say you have things kind of warming up, you're getting some heavier patches of snow, but there's still that real firm icy layer underneath, the ski can get pretty easily deflected. I feel like because it doesn't have a ton of camber underfoot, the ski can kind of wobble. And you'll probably see that in some of the clips that I'll show here, at least I'll try to find one. But you can see that the ski kind of gets like deflected pretty easily in those situations because it wants to grab and it wants to initiate. So when it's between these two surfaces, the tip of the ski wants to kind of grab and hook and the tail sliding on ice, the ski kind of like wants to jerk from underneath you. It's kind of an annoying feeling when you're skiing because it doesn't make the ski feel particularly stable underfoot. But if you're a strong skier, just staying balanced in those situations, you're able to ski out of those minor issues, no problem. But just something that I noticed when I first got on these skis, I was like, oh wow, like they kind of seesaw a little bit underneath you. But the harder you ski, the more aggressive you are, the less this is an issue. It's really most pronounced when you're kind of trying to slide or slarve and just be kind of gentle with the skis. They kind of deflect and seesaw a little bit. But when you're really just engaging those edges, nothing's going to make the ski kind of like shoot out from underneath you. Both those edges grip and rip. So the harder you ski them, the more they reward you for it. And that's kind of how I've learned to ski them. Now, as far as a tree ski goes, this would not be my first choice, but it's not a bad choice. It's just a very demanding ski for the type of tree skiing that we have here on the East Coast, where you have sort of the predefined lines or the tree roller coaster, as I like to call it. In those situations, I'd much rather be on a surfier ski that I can kind of check speed with easier and just maneuver through the trees. But because it's a little bit more central mounted than other skis that I've used in the past, it kind of doesn't have as much tip in front of you, which makes maneuvering through the tight spaces a little bit easier. But sort of the other side of that, this ski does provide good edge grip on ice. So if you're on that tree roller coaster and it's an icy day, you do have a good amount of grip with this ski. So, just kind of pick and choose your battles here, but it would not be my first choice as a tree ski. It's something you certainly can do, but it's just not very surfy and easy to maneuver through those trees. Definitely a little bit more demanding. All right, let's talk about the soft snow performance for this ski. Now, I typically grab my 106s basically anytime we had any sort of fresh snow or I was expecting slush in the day. But there are a few days where I went and took these on a, light powder day or a slush day and just tried them out. Because they're 98 underfoot and they have relatively wide tips and tails, they give you a pretty good amount of float. But being a little bit more forward mounted, not the greatest float for the width that it is. It's not really the ideal ski for soft snow conditions because it does want to sort of engage you into a turn and pull you through rather than just kind of surf and slarve. So keep that in mind if you're looking at this as sort of your soft snow ski. It doesn't have a ton of rocker, long effective edge, minimal early taper in the tips and tails. And it's more of a trenching ski than it is a surfy ski. So it wouldn't be my first choice for soft snow. Finally, I want to talk about the ski's performance in the park and just its overall playfulness, if that's sort of what your jam is. I'm not a park skier. I'm much more of a free ride skier, and I think that's what this ski is really best at. You know, I would be hesitant if I was a park skier to butter and hit rails and stuff like that on the ski because, first of all, buttering with the ski, the tips I feel like just are going to want to engage and like rip you into a turn if you tried to, you know, get up on them. It's not the softest flexing ski. It's pretty energetic. So I just think that those things kind of make it a lot to handle in the park. Would not be my first choice. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't want to hit rails with it and dull the edges because it carves so well. That would kind of take away from that performance. I mean, I don't know. Maybe the 98 CA would be a better ski if you're into the park skiing side of things. But as far as a free ride ski, you know, if you want to ski switch, hit some side hits, you know, hit some jumps in the park, maybe do some spins, and then just lay trenches and use it as a high performing all mountain ski, perfect. I mean, that's exactly why I chose this ski to be my low tide condition ski. You know, it rips carves, it's fun to ski switch, it's a little bit more center mounted so you can spin it a little bit easier. Yeah, I mean, it's just a great free ride, low tide ski. All right, now I want to kind of wrap things up here with a comparison versus the Unleashed 98 and one of the more popular skis in the same category, the QST100. Now, I own the QST106s, but my dad has the QST100s and he absolutely loves them. We skied together through a variety of conditions this year, got his feedback from the skis, and I think I can give you a pretty good comparison to these two. First, the Unleashed 98, when it comes to firm snow and on-trail performance, above the QST100 in that regard. It is truly a special ski, like I'd mentioned, when it comes to carving and on-trail performance. The edge grip is phenomenal, and it just absolutely wants to trench carves. The QST100 will allow you to carve, but it feels like it doesn't trench and dig in like the Unleashed 98 does. You know, you can bend it into a carve, the snow is pretty soft, but when things get a little bit firmer, the Unleashed 98 just absolutely wants to trench and dig into a turn. It's a truly unique experience and feeling versus the QST, which has a more traditional sort of ski feel when it comes to carving. On trail, let's say you're skiing the sides, you know, you're trying to make some smeary, shorter radius turns. The QST100 is just a lot more maneuverable and easier to flick around than the Unleashed 98. 98 just is a lot more precise and grippy feeling of a ski. The QST100 is just much more surfy, maneuverable, and kind of just easier to get along with. So if that's sort of your jam, then maybe the QST100 is a better ski for you. When it comes to soft snow performance, again, the QST100 is a better ski when it comes to any amount of soft snow, powder, slush, whatever. Just the rocker profile and shaping of that ski makes it a better ski to surf and maneuver around in those sort of conditions versus the Unleashed. So overall, the QST100 is kind of better in most areas of the mountain in my experience than the Unleashed 98. But when things are firm, I'd much rather be on the Unleashed 98. I mean, there are situations where I was able to trench carves and just really trust my edges, where my dad was, you know, very hesitant and could not trust his QST100s at all. So if you're dealing with firm conditions a lot, then Unleashed 98, definitely the way to go. Ultimately, you know, both are great skis. They just are very different. So take your pick. All right, finally, who do I think the Unleashed 98 is for? In my opinion, it's for the advanced or expert skier who's looking for a ski that performs really well on groomed trails and has exceptional edge grip for firmer snow conditions. Think of like for me, the perfect day for the Unleashed 98 would be a great corduroy day in the morning where you can trench some carves as things kind of get skied out. You know, I go over and ski some firmer bumps and I just ski those all day until my legs fall off. Maybe I come back to the groomer later in the day when things are kind of chopped up and kind of hit the sides where the snow's been pushed off too, and then call it a day. Hasn't snowed in a while, don't care, having a great time on the Unleashed 98. That's the ski I want in that situation. In my opinion, it is not a ski for soft snow. It is not a ski for beginners or intermediate skiers. And third, it's not for those who prefer a surfier feeling ski. The ski likes to initiate and kind of rip you into a turn, does not like to surf and slarve quite as much as something like the QST or something with more rocker. So keep that in mind. But for firm snow days, can't beat it. All right, that's gonna wrap up today's video. Thank you for watching. If you're still here at this point, do me a favor, hit that like button. And if you really liked this video and want to see more of it in the future, be sure to hit the subscribe button. It takes a ton of work to make these videos, so even just doing those simple things really helps out a lot with growing the channel and just pushing this video out to people that it can help. So thank you for watching. If you have any experience with the Unleashed 98 or a similar ski, be sure to drop your thoughts in the comment section below. I think the more thoughts and feedback that we can gather in the comments section, the better for those who are trying to decide between skis, because it can be so challenging. You know, you can't always demo a ski to try it before you buy it. So let's help each other out in the comments section down below. And on that note, that's gonna wrap it up. Thanks for watching. I'm Chris, and I'll see you in the next video.
But I'm just getting started.